Stop me if this sounds familiar. You're on the ice, or in the boat. The guy 10 feet away from you is just hammering them, one after another. You wander over, you ask the classic question, "What are you using?" He shows you, and it's the exact same lure you have tied on. Same color, same size. You go back to your spot full of confidence, and nothing. Not a single bite. Is he a fish magician? Is your spot cursed? The truth is much simpler, and a lot more frustrating. Today, we're going to expose the real reasons your neighbor is catching fish and you're not, and I promise you it has almost nothing to do with the piece of metal or plastic at the end of your line. By the end of this, you'll see the water differently. So let me ask you, do you really believe that two identical lures are ever truly fishing the same way? Let's find out. For generations, we've been taught one simple rule: match the hatch. Find out what the fish are eating and use a lure that looks like it. It's the foundation of fishing, and it's not wrong, but it's dangerously incomplete. This belief makes us focus entirely on the what, the lure itself. We buy dozens of them, in every color imaginable. We organize them in fancy tackle boxes. We think that owning the magic lure is 90% of the battle. This mindset is why the scenario we just talked about is so maddening. It shatters our core belief. If the lures are identical, the results should be identical, right? Wrong. The truth is, the lure is just the starting point. It's the actor on the stage. But you are the director, and how you direct that actor, how you make it move, where you place it, and even the strings you attach to it, makes all the difference between an award-winning performance and a total flop. Let's start with the most overlooked detail of all, your fishing line. Your buddy says he's using 6-pound test, and so are you, but is his line fluorocarbon while yours is monofilament? This is not a small detail. Imagine you're a fish in clear water. A thick, visible, monofilament line looks like a rope tied to your potential meal. It screams, danger. His nearly invisible fluorocarbon line, on the other hand, presents the lure as a natural, free-floating snack. The difference in visibility is massive, especially for wary pressured fish. Monofilament also stretches more, which can create a slight lag in your jigging motion and absorb the subtle feeling of a light bite. His fluorocarbon line has less stretch, giving him a more direct connection to the lure. He feels everything, and his lure's action is crisp and immediate. You both think you're doing the same thing, but the fish are seeing two completely different presentations, all because of the type of line you chose. It's the first clue that the same is never truly the same. Okay, let's stick with the line for another minute. You both have 6-pound test fluorocarbon, so now you're identical, right? Not so fast. Let's talk about line diameter. One brand's 6-pound test might be 0.008 inches thick, while another brand's is 0.009. That seems like an insignificant difference to us, but it changes everything for a tiny 1/16 ounce jig. A thicker line has more resistance in the water. It acts like a parachute, slowing your lure's fall and making it drift unnaturally. It kills the subtle, fluttering action that a lightweight lure is designed to have. Your buddy's thinner line allows his jig to fall faster, to cut through the water, and to dance with every tiny twitch of his rod tip. Your jig, on the other hand, is being held back, its action deadened by the drag of a slightly thicker line. You're trying to make your lure dance, but your line is forcing it to waltz in slow motion. The fish see this. They see one lure moving with life, and another moving like it's stuck in mud. Now let's move down to the final connection, the knot. You probably tied a simple improved clinch knot, pulling it tight right against the eye of the jig. It's a strong, reliable knot. We've all used it for years. But your buddy? He might have used a loop knot, like a Rapala knot. This creates a small, open loop that allows the lure to pivot and swing freely. Think about it. Your tightly cinched lure can only move in a stiff, somewhat restricted path, dictated by your line. His lure, hanging from that tiny loop, can dart, glide, and flutter with a much more natural and erratic action. When he pauses, his lure can swing and settle in a way that looks incredibly lifelike. Your lure just stops, dead. For fish that are triggered by erratic movement and subtle action, that little loop is the difference between a curious glance and a committed strike. It's a tiny change in technique that results in a massive change in the lure's underwater performance. The knot isn't just a connection, it's part of the presentation. Let's talk about your hands. Not your technique yet, just your hands. What did you do before you handled that lure? Did you just finish a cigarette? Did you put on sunscreen an hour ago? Maybe you used some hand sanitizer back at the truck? Fish, especially species like trout and walleye, have an incredible sense of smell. Any foreign chemical scent on your lure is like a giant flashing neon sign that says, "Danger, fake food." Your buddy, on the other hand, might be meticulous about scent. He might wash his hands with non-scented soap before he starts fishing, or even rub his hands in the dirt and mud by the water to mask his human scent. He might even be using a commercial scent attractant, like a garlic or baitfish formula, on his lure. So while your lure smells like bug spray and coffee, his smells like a natural meal. You're presenting something that looks right but smells all wrong. He's offering the complete package. It's an invisible advantage that you can't see, but the fish can definitely smell. Now, let's examine the rod itself. You both have a light action rod, but the term light action can mean 100 different things. Your rod might be a moderate action light, meaning it bends through the top half of the rod blank. His might be an extra fast action light, which only bends in the top few inches. This dramatically changes how your hand movements are transferred to the lure. With your moderate action rod, a sharp flick of the wrist creates a softer, more sweeping motion in the lure. With his extra fast rod, that same flick of the wrist creates a crisp, sharp, darting action. He can make his jig pop off the bottom. You can only make yours lift. When fish are aggressive, that sharp pop is a major trigger. When they're lethargic, your slower sweep might be better. The point is, your rods are translating your intent differently. You could be making the exact same physical movement, but the fish are seeing two completely different dances underwater because of the tool in your hand. Let's talk about the single most important factor, your jigging cadence. This is the rhythm, the pulse of your presentation. You're probably doing what most people do, a lift, drop motion. Maybe you pause for a few seconds. It's a standard retrieve. But your neighbor, watch him closely. He's not just lifting and dropping. He might be doing 2 sharp pops, followed by a long 10-second pause where the rod is completely still. Then, he might just barely shake the rod tip, just enough to make the lure quiver in place. It's this sequence of movements, the combination of aggression and subtlety, the long pauses, that drives fish crazy. Most strikes happen on the pause, when the fish has a moment to inspect and commit. You're keeping your lure moving constantly, never giving them that window. He has mastered the art of the pause. He understands that 90% of jigging is knowing when to do absolutely nothing. His lure is telling a story with action, suspense, and drama. Yours is just repeating the same word over and over. How is the lure getting to the bottom? This is something almost nobody thinks about. It's called the fall. When you get to your spot, you probably just open the bail on your reel and let the lure plummet to the bottom on a totally slack line. It gets down there fast, sure, but your buddy is doing something called a controlled fall. He keeps his line slightly taut as the lure sinks, feeling for any change. He's fishing on the drop. Many fish, especially suspended ones like crappie, will hit a lure as it falls. On a slack line, you will never feel that bite. You'll just think it took a little longer to hit the bottom. He, on the other hand, feels the tiny tick or sees his line jump, and he sets the hook. Furthermore, a lure falling on a semi-taut line has a different action. It glides and spirals in a pendulum motion, looking like an injured bait fish. Your lure, on a slack line, just drops like a rock. He's actively fishing from the moment his lure hits the water. You only start fishing once it hits the bottom. Let's consider depth control. This is especially critical in ice fishing. You both see a fish on your sonar at 20 feet. You drop your lure down and stop it when your screen says it's at 20 feet. Simple enough. But are you truly at 20 feet? Is your sonar transducer perfectly level? Is your line perfectly vertical? If there's a slight current under the ice, your lure might be sweeping away from the hole, putting it at 21 or 22 feet deep, even though your line counter says 20. Your neighbor might be a master of pounding the bottom. He lets his lure hit the silt, then reels up exactly 6 inches. He knows, with absolute certainty, that he is 6 inches off the bottom. You think you're in the strike zone, but you might be a foot or two above the fish's head. In the world of fish, a foot is a mile. He is presenting his lure on their dinner plate. You are waving it around in the rafters. Think about microlocation. You're only 10 feet apart. How different can it be? Incredibly different. He might be sitting on the edge of a subtle drop-off that you can't see on a map. His lure could be dangling right on the break line, a natural highway for cruising fish. You, just a few feet away, are on the flat, sterile part of the basin. Or maybe he's positioned directly over a single submerged rock, or a small patch of weeds. This tiny piece of underwater structure can hold a whole school of fish. He's not just fishing a general area. He drilled his hole or positioned his boat with precision, targeting a specific, high-percentage spot the size of a dinner table. You just picked a spot that looked good. He is fishing with surgical intent based on map study or experience. You are just hoping to get lucky. The difference isn't the lure, it's the real estate it's occupying. This one applies mostly to ice fishing, but it's a perfect example of a hidden variable. Many ice jigs are painted with glow-in-the-dark paint. In the dim light under the ice, this glow can be a powerful attractant. You both have the same glow-in-the-dark lure, but before he drops his lure down the hole, he charges it for a good 30 seconds with a powerful LED flashlight. His lure goes down there glowing like a firefly. You just took yours out of the box and sent it down. It might have a faint residual glow, but it's nothing compared to his. After 10 minutes, his lure is still glowing brightly, while yours is completely dark. To the fish, his lure is a vibrant, eye-catching beacon. Yours is just a dull piece of metal. He's essentially fishing with a light on, and you are fishing with the lights off. It's a simple 2-second action on the surface that creates a world of difference down below. Let's talk about the classic trick of tipping the lure. You're both using the same jig, but is he adding a little something extra? He might have a small maggot, a waxworm, or even just the head of a minnow pierced onto the hook. This does 2 critical things. First, it adds natural scent and taste. A fish might strike a plain jig out of aggression, but if it tastes like metal, it will spit it out in a fraction of a second. If it tastes like food, it will hold on longer, giving him more time to set the hook. Second, it adds a tiny bit of fluttering, squirming, natural action to the presentation. That little wiggling tail can be just enough to convince a hesitant fish to bite. You're presenting a good-looking imitation. He's presenting the same imitation, but he's turned it into a full-course meal with an appetizer. It's a small addition that doubles the appeal of his offering. How sharp is your hook? I mean, really, how sharp? You probably took the lure right out of the package and tied it on. Factory hooks are usually okay, but they are rarely sticky sharp. Your buddy, on the other hand, might be obsessive about his hooks. He likely takes a small hook file or sharpener, and gives the point a few quick touches before he ever uses it. A truly sharp hook will stick to your thumbnail with just its own weight. What's the difference? A dull hook requires a powerful, forceful hook set to penetrate a fish's bony jaw. A sticky, sharp hook will grab hold with just the slightest pressure. You might be getting just as many bites as he is, but those bites are subtle. The fish just mouths the lure for a second. With your dull hook, it just bounces off. With his sharp hook, the point finds purchase immediately. You think you're not getting bites. The reality is, you're not converting the bites you are getting. Consider your noise and vibration signature. On the ice, are you shuffling your feet, dropping things, and generally making a racket? Every one of those sounds transmits directly through the ice and into the water. It's like someone stomping on the ceiling above the fish. In a boat, are you dropping pliers on the floor or slamming compartment lids? Those vibrations travel through the hull and into the water, spooking any fish below. Your neighbor is probably the opposite. He moves with stealth and deliberation. He sets his gear down gently. He's a statue. He understands that fish can be incredibly sensitive to pressure changes and overhead noise, especially in shallow water. He is being a silent hunter, blending into the environment. You are announcing your presence like a marching band. The fish under him are relaxed and feeding. The fish under you are on high alert and have their mouths clamped shut. This is for the anglers using electronics like a flasher or a sonar. You both see a red line appear on the screen, indicating a fish. What do? You probably start jigging your lure aggressively right in its face, trying to force a reaction. What does your buddy do? He might do the opposite. He might slowly raise his lure up, away from the fish. This triggers a predator's instinct to chase. The fish sees its potential meal trying to escape and is compelled to follow and strike. Or, if the fish is hesitant, he might drop his lure below the fish, then slowly bring it up, so it appears without seeming threatening. He is reading the fish's mood on the screen and adjusting his strategy accordingly. You are using the same approach for every fish you see. He is having a dynamic conversation with the fish through his electronics, and you are just shouting at them. Let's get into the psychology of it. Confidence is a real tangible thing in fishing. Your neighbor is catching fish, so he's confident. He's focused. Every twitch of his rod has purpose. He expects a bite on every drop. He's fishing with intent. You, on the other hand, have gone an hour without a bite. You're starting to get frustrated and distracted. You're checking your phone. Your jigging becomes a mindless mechanical motion. You're not really paying attention. You're just going through the motions, hoping something happens. This lack of focus means you're more likely to miss that incredibly light bite. You're not anticipating the strike. Your reaction time is slower. He is in the zone, perfectly in tune with his lure and his line. You are just passing the time. Believe it or not, fish can sense this. Okay, maybe not literally, but your lack of focus translates into a sloppy, unconvincing presentation. How have you adapted to the changing conditions? When you both started fishing at sunrise, the fish were aggressive, and a sharp, fast jigging cadence was working. But now, 2 hours later, the sun is high and the bite has slowed down. You are still using that same aggressive cadence because, hey, it worked earlier. Your neighbor, however, has noticed the change. He's slowed everything down. His jigging motions are smaller, his pauses are longer. He might have even switched to a slightly smaller lure in a more natural color. He is adapting his presentation to the fish's changing mood throughout the day. You are stuck in the past, trying to use a tactic for a situation that no longer exists. Successful fishing isn't about finding one magic trick. It's about having a whole toolbox of tricks and knowing when to use each one. He's a dynamic problem solver. You're a one-trick pony. Let's look at the angle of your line in the water. In a perfect world, you're fishing straight down a technique called vertical jigging. But what if there's a bit of wind or a slight current? It might be pushing your boat or your line, causing your lure to hang at a slight angle. This might not seem like a big deal, but it changes your presentation. You lose some of the direct up and down snapping action. Instead, your lure swings more like a pendulum. Your buddy may have recognized this. He might have switched to a heavier jig to cut through the current and maintain a more vertical presentation. Or he's using the current to his advantage, letting his lure sweep over a piece of structure. The point is, he is aware of the angle and is either correcting for it or using it strategically. You are likely unaware that your lure isn't even under you anymore. It's 10 feet downstream in a completely different zone. What about your reel? Yes, even your reel can make a difference. Let's say you're using an old cheap spinning reel with a clunky drag system. Your friend has a high quality reel with a silky smooth carbon drag. A fish bites his lure, he sets the hook, and the fish makes a run. His drag pays out line smoothly, keeping constant, safe pressure on the fish. There are no sudden jerks that could tear the hook out. Now, a fish bites your lure. As it runs, your cheap drag stutters and sticks. It goes from too loose to too tight in an instant. That sudden jolt of pressure puts too much strain on the hook hold, and the hook pops out. You just lost a fish and you blame it on bad luck. It wasn't bad luck. It was inferior equipment creating a moment of failure. The same goes for the retrieve. A smooth reel allows for better line management and a more consistent feel for what your lure is doing. Let's put a few of these ideas together in a real-world scenario. Your buddy is using a tiny 1/32 ounce jig on a 2-pound test, ultra-thin fluorocarbon line. He's using a super-fast action rod that lets him impart a tiny quivering action to that jig, making it look like a living insect larva. You have the same jig, but it's tied to 6-pound monofilament line. That thick, stiff line completely negates the delicate action of the tiny jig. To the fish, his offering looks alive. Yours looks like a piece of plastic tied to a rope. He is fishing a finesse system where every component is perfectly matched to create a specific, subtle presentation. You have a mismatched system where your line and rod are overpowering your lure. It's like trying to perform delicate surgery with a sledgehammer. The lure is the same, but the system delivering it is completely wrong. Finally, let's talk about the most powerful tool of all, observation. Your buddy isn't just fishing, he's constantly gathering data. He's watching his line for the slightest twitch. He's paying attention to which cadence got the last bite. He's noticing that the fish are only hitting when the lure is 6 inches off the bottom, not 12. He saw a flock of seagulls diving 100 yards away, indicating a school of bait fish. He is actively engaged with the environment around him, looking for clues. You are staring at your rod tip, waiting for it to bend. He is playing chess with the fish, thinking 2 moves ahead. You are playing checkers, waiting for the fish to make a mistake. The biggest difference between you and him isn't the lure, the line, or the rod. It's the attention to detail. He is noticing and adapting to a dozen tiny variables that you are completely ignoring. That's the real secret. So, what's the big takeaway here? The grand revelation? It's that the lure is a lie. The idea that you and your neighbor are using the same thing is the biggest myth in fishing. You are never using the same thing. From the brand of your line to the way you fidgeted your feet, you are creating a completely different reality for the fish. The real turning point in your fishing journey is when you stop blaming the lure and start taking responsibility for the entire system. It's the 100 little 1% details, the knot, the pause, the line diameter, the hook point, that add up to 100% of the success. It's not magic, it's meticulous attention to detail. This can change your entire approach. Now, instead of asking, what are they biting on, you'll start asking, how are they biting on it? Thank you so much for watching. If this opened your eyes, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the basics. Now, I have to ask you, what's the one tiny detail you're going to change on your very next fishing trip? Let me know in the comments below.